Whoa, this changes everything. Hold on. Look. You ready? Boom, look at that. Portable sun. This is insane. This is gonna make everything so much better. Look at that. But more importantly, check this out. We've got colors. There we go. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I've got some orange here, I've got some blue here. Today we're talking about teal and orange. Let's go. What's up team, my name is Mark and welcome back to Making Instagram Bangers, the series where I teach you all the tips and tricks that I use to shoot and edit photos. So today, a highly requested episode, we're going to be talking about teal and orange. But before we do that, we're going to talk about what is teal and orange, why is it considered cinematic, but more importantly, how can I do better teal and orange and not end up with these nuclear disaster, overcooked images I've been seeing all over Instagram. Why is the sky green? That makes no sense. So to understand teal and orange, you need to understand just a tiny bit about color science. Now, don't worry, this is just really basic stuff. Teal and orange draws its roots in cinema, but why? So for the sake of argument, I just Googled skin color on Google Images, and this is the first image I found, pretty basic. Now, if I upload this to a service like Adobe Color, let's have a look. There we go. Now, if I drag all of these dots on the skin tones, it's basically going to get me all the colors associated with these different skin tones. Now, this is a wide range of skin colors, but if I click on the color wheel here, you'll notice that regardless of skin color, all the skin tones fall into a rather small orange area on the color wheel. This is important because if I want to contrast with skin tones, I have to apply complementary colors. So if I apply them here, there we go. All the complementary colors fall into that sort of blue teal area, and that's where teal and orange is born. So photography, videography, movie making is all about directing the attention of your audience to a specific thing. Teal and orange means that if the skin is orange and everything else is teal, then you get a strong contrast between the two, and you can easily pick out skin tone. So if you look at a couple of examples in recent cinema and TV shows, if we look at this image, you'll notice that the jacket is blue, both jackets are blue actually, and the skin is orange as it should be, but the trees in the background, they're not green. They're sort of a really dark, desaturated, bluey green type mix. All the cars in the background are also blue. This means that the only thing that really stands out are the skin tones. Now, if you look at another scene from the same TV show, look at that, the whole background is blue and they're both wearing blue clothes. He's got a blue t-shirt, this is kind of grey blue, which means that the only thing that isn't blue in this image, in this screenshot right here, are the skin tones, and they really stand out. Now, if you Google teal and orange movies or teal and orange cinema, that's when you really start noticing how much it's applied in modern day cinema. I mean, look at any one of these scenes, all of them are just two colors, blue and orange. Now, some of them are slightly more subtle than others, but it's always a variation of the same thing. So here's a bit of a challenge for you. Next time you go to the cinemas or you watch a movie at home, try and pay attention to what the characters are wearing. Are all the characters wearing blue t-shirts, for example, or is there a really strong contrast between the blue and the orange? The easiest way to spot this is to look at trees. Trees being green kind of sit between the two, and if a really strong teal and orange look is applied, the trees will either look blue or will look orange. Anyway, bro science over, let's edit some photos. Okay, so we're in Lightroom right now, and the first step to any edit is going to be to scroll all the way to the bottom to the calibration area. So you can apply this either at the start of your edit or towards the end. In this scenario, I've already edited the photo for light adjustments, and I'm going to do some coloring at the end. So the first step is going to be to look at the calibration panel. Now, this is an extremely powerful tool. See, if I pull the blue to the left or to the right, you can see just how powerful this is. So it's very easy to overdo. So the standard teal and orange effect comes from putting the blue down and putting the red up. So we're going to try and do this without going overboard. This is the key. So we're going to pull blue down a little bit, somewhere towards maybe -70, something like that. And you can already see the skin tones are turning much more orange and the blues turning much more blue. The side effect, however, is all this green area is turning orange as well, but we'll work on that in just a second. So next step is going to be to bring the red up a little bit. So we'll bring it somewhere around +70 maybe. Yep, there we go, something like that. Now you can see I've started to turn a little bit orange as well, so I'm going to fix that by putting the green up just a little bit. So my workflow is usually blue, red, green. Blue to create the effect, red to start balancing things out, and then green to balance out the skin tones. Now this effect is a little bit too strong, so I'm just going to pull down the saturation on some of these sliders. Let's go like minus 35, something like that, and probably leave green like that. Okay, so I'm quite happy already with the overall look. So if we look at before and the after, you can see there's quite a stronger contrast between the orange and the blue, especially towards this top area here. If you look at that, before and after, you can see that the skin really stands out with a background that's got more of a teal tint to it. Now we've applied a generic teal and orange effect to this photo, but the second step is always going to be to scroll back up a little bit to the hue, saturation and luminance panel. And this is where we can start doing some adjustments to fine tune it and make it cleaner. So for starters, I want to work on this green area because at the moment it looks a little bit too orangey green. So I'm going to see what I can do. So if I pull the yellow up a little bit, I am putting it slightly more towards green as it was before, but to counteract that, because I don't want too much green in my image, I'm just going to pull the saturation down. There we go, something like that. So the green is dealt with, but now I want to start looking at other colors. Okay, so the trademark of a teal and orange photo is having a teal sky. Now, I'm going to pull the blue down a little bit and just look at the sky and how potent this effect is. Instantly, the sky is now green. Now that's overboard, and that's something you want to avoid. The key with this effect is being subtle and paying attention to stuff that is really obvious. There is no scenario in which the sky is green, so you want to avoid that at all costs. So here I'm just going to pull it down, maybe somewhere around minus 40. I quite like that sort of teal look, but I'm just going to dial it down a little bit by putting the saturation down on the sky. There we go. And maybe adding a little bit of luminance in the blue as well. There we go, something like that. Now we have a subtle teal that's quite pale as well. So that looks way more realistic and also contrasts nicely with the skin tones. And last but not least, let's look at the skin tones as well. So I am quite happy with how they are already in terms of hue. So I might, yeah, there we go, something like that. I might pull the saturation down just a little bit. I don't want it to be too strong. Somewhere around here. And if I pull the luminance up just a little bit as well. There we go, just to give it that extra pop, that extra contrast. Now, whenever editing teal and orange photos, often you'll start losing contrast in the overall image, so you can dial up the contrast a little bit towards the end just to finish the image off. So if we look at before and after, we've made a massive difference. All the green that was quite strong before is now dialed down without being too orange or too blue. We've slightly desaturated it and created this sort of dark green, and we've created a much stronger contrast between the subject and the background as well. So in this scenario, we've done some pretty good teal and orange work to really differentiate between subject and background. Now, if we look at a second photo, now the issue with this one here is that we've got a lot of green and we don't really have anything that's going to become blue in the background. So that makes it problematic for teal and orange, but there is a way around this. So similarly to the previous effect, I'm going to scroll down to calibration. So first step again is going to be to pull the blue down. So I might pull it down quite far, maybe all the way this time. There we go, something like that. I might pull the saturation down because the effect is quite strong, but I do want to try and push these colors in opposite directions. So that's why I'm going really harshly on this effect. I'll push the red up all the way, maybe somewhere around 70, something like that. Pull the saturation down as well. There we go, and now greens. Now because there's a lot of green on this image, this is going to make a huge difference if you put it on one end or the other. It's going to be either green or quite desaturated. So for this one, I'm going to leave it around plus 60. Now this takes a bit of practice. It's all about understanding how your image works and how those colors work. It is a little bit tricky to foresee what pulling the blue, the green and the red does with calibration, but with a little bit of practice, you'll be able to suss out what potential the image has. So for this one, I'm quite happy with how it stands now, but I am going to do a little bit more work. If I scroll back up to hue, saturation and luminance, right off the bat, I feel like I really need to push those yellows up so I can start getting rid of that orange. So see, that orange in the grass is now gone green. So now that it's green, it's differentiated from the skin tones. We've got a bit more contrast in the skin tones. I'm going to be able to start working on it as well. So I'm going to pull the saturation down on that green somewhere around maybe a little bit more, -85. There we go, that looks pretty good. I might pull down the reds as well, if there's any reds. And I'm going to pull the greens all the way down as well. There we go, that's already looking quite nice. And we've managed to create contrast between the subject and the background. Now, again, because teal and orange works really well for things that do have contrast between blue and red, if you've got green, you can't really do that effect as much because green is naturally going to blend with the orange or the blues. So there you go. So if we look at the before and the after, let's have a look. There we go, we've achieved that sort of moody teal and orange look, and we've also managed to apply it to an image that wouldn't necessarily work too well if you just applied basic teal and orange. If you just moved those blue and red sliders, everything would be orange in the first place, and you really would have lost that contrast. So again, this is really up to your own taste. I know a lot of people on Instagram like to play with that kind of teal and orange effect. I like to push greens a little bit more. Sometimes I do a bit of teal and orange, but in this case, I reckon both look pretty good, and they both kind of portray a different emotion, a different feeling about that moment. So there you go. So there you have it, guys. Just a couple of ways you can start applying teal and oranges to your images. It's more about trying to understand the concept, which is creating contrast between your foreground, your subject, and your background to make sure the attention is focused on your subject and not so much on the background. Now, you can't apply this to everything. Some images it won't work because the background will be orange and your skin tone's orange, so it'll make it a little bit difficult to create that contrast. But on some photos, it really does make the skin tones pop. And so it's all about learning how you can apply different saturation values to the greens and the blues, and how you can really push colors in either direction to create contrast in your images. So there you have it, guys, a couple of examples of subtle teal and orange, not too strong. If you want a really strong teal and orange cinematic look, I can do a tutorial on that as well. So yeah, I hope you learned something new. If you did, feel free to like the video. Drop me a comment, let me know what you want to see next. I'll be making a bunch more tutorials in the weeks to come. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark. I'm a photographer, videographer, and I teach you all the things I know. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you around. In the meantime, stay creative. Take care, guys.